product is the way your organization delivers and captures value. I think it's important that we talk about what a product manager is. We use this phrase a lot, and I think that if you looked at job descriptions from 10 different companies, you would end up with at least 10 different descriptions of what a product manager is. And I bet if you looked at 10 different job descriptions of product managers in the same company, you'd probably get 10 different descriptions. So I think it's important to lay a foundation of what we mean when we say product manager, what it means when we say product management, and specifically lean product management. I think it's also important to talk about what is a product very quickly. And then lastly, the fundamental role of product management inside a team and inside of an organization. So if we're broadly defining it, a product manager is a person with end-to-end responsibility for a product throughout its life cycle. In other words, your job is to be strategic, to go out into the market, understand the market opportunity, understand customers, understand the competition, look for gaps to see where you might have that competitive advantage. Your job is also to be tactical, not just strategic, but to figure out what features and functionality we would need to build and why we need to build them and how they might serve customers, exploit that gap that you found in the marketplace, and serve customers in a better way. Your job is also to be aware of the development of the product. So we've had this role of product owner for a long time, but really it's a facet of being a product manager and being a part of a cross-functional team. Your job is to make sure that the product launches successfully. So you've got to have these go-to-market skills. Right? How do we make sure that people find us, that people purchase the product, that we've got the right pricing and value proposition in place? And then ultimately, that just going to market is just the beginning of the life cycle of your product. You have to monitor it, right? How's it performing in the market? What's the feedback that you're getting from your users and from your customers, and how might you improve it? Which is a lot for one person to do, right? There's a tremendous amount of responsibility there, but as a product manager, right, you're focused on the entire life cycle of the product, from inception of the idea through launch, through production and launch, and then ultimately through its success in the marketplace itself. If you're lucky, that product will live a long time and you will have a lot of work to continue doing on it once it goes live into the market. Now, when we talk about product management in the context of lean, right? So we've got product managers responsible for the entirety of the product. What does it mean to be a lean product manager? As a lean product manager, you are navigating your product team through the uncertainty of digital product development. Right? Your job is not to be the foreman of a feature factory. Right? You're not driving your team to produce features endlessly. Your goal is to make sure that your team understands what we know and what we don't know and what we need to find out about the product that we're building, the problems that we're solving, and the customers that we're serving, not to mention the marketplace and competition, and then to help your team navigate all of those unknowns. So if we're working in a lean way, when we're doing product management, we have 4 key principles to consider. First is customer centricity. Everything we do is designed to serve a customer. Now that customer can be the direct user of your product. It could be the buyer of your product. It might be a variety of different folks who use the system. It really depends on what you're actually building. But at the core of the work that you do is a dedicated focus on the customer. What problem are we solving for them? And if we solve that problem for them, what will they be doing differently to tell us that we've actually delivered some value for them? So that's number 1. Number 2 is agility. Right? There's a lot of talk about agile with a capital A. We're talking about agility with a lowercase a. Right? If you're working in a lean product management way, or you're a lean product manager, you're an agile product manager, again, with a lowercase a. What does that mean? That means that as new information comes in, you're adjusting course based on what you're learning along the way. Rather than coming up with a plan, fixing the dates, fixing the production schedule, and then ignoring everything that's happening around you, you're willing to adjust course as new information comes in. So agility is a huge part of lean product management. The third part of lean product management is evidence-based decision making. Our goal is to make as many objective decisions as we can. And so we're going to build those learning loops. We're going to put our ideas into the market. And when we collect evidence through our learning and through our experimentation, we're going to make decisions about how to proceed with the product based on the evidence that we've collected. There's always going to be subjective opinions thrown into it. And sometimes those subjective opinions, perhaps often, are going to come from people who are your stakeholders, your bosses, your customers, your clients, etc. Our goal is to try to push forward as lean product managers as much evidence-based decision-making as we can rather than subjective decision-making, which can be tough. Sometimes the evidence isn't compelling one way or another, right? Sometimes the evidence comes back and it's very clear what we should do next. But a lot of the times we have to make a subjective call because the evidence isn't clear. So the fourth part of lean product management is continuous learning and improvement. And this really is a manifestation of humility. Right? So if you're going to be a successful lean product manager, you need to be a humble product manager. This means that you're going to have great ideas and you're going to love those ideas and you're going to be focused on the customer and ready to change course. But when the evidence comes back and that evidence contradicts your great idea and your plan, you have to be willing to adjust course, to make that improvement and to learn from that and then decide how to move forward. And that's true not just for you, but for the team that's building this. And so you really have to model this behavior as a lean product manager, right? So we've talked about customer centricity, agility, evidence-based decision-making, and continuous learning and improvement. Perhaps it's worth mentioning, what is a product? We keep using this word, but we don't necessarily get very specific about what a product is because, again, it changes based on the context that you're working in, right? Now, if you work in a situation where you're producing a product, a digital product or service that's consumed directly by customers, like a B2C product, it's very clear what that product is. It's the thing that you're working on, right? But if you work in a bank, for example, and the bank has loans and mortgages and savings accounts and checking accounts and credit cards, and it has an app and a website and other types of digital systems, what's a product in that situation? And you can get even more complex, right? What if you work in an organization that is a B2B2C organization? So you're building products for other companies who then take your products and manipulate them to serve their customers, right? What's a product in that situation? And so really thinking about it broadly, especially in that most complex situation, a product is a system that connects people and organizations to help them be more productive and more successful in their day-to-day work. And it's the way that that organization delivers and captures value. That's the key, right? So regardless of what you make, how big or complex it is, how simple it is, how many different players and customers you have in your ecosystem, a product is the way your organization delivers and captures value. And as a product manager, as you're navigating the uncertainty of digital product development, it's critical that you remember that most product managers have to influence without authority. 20 plus years ago, Ben Horowitz wrote a groundbreaking memo called Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager. And in that article, he described product managers as the CEO of the product. I have some bad news for you. You're not the CEO of the product. And I'm sorry to say that. Why? Because you, generally speaking, product managers don't have control over budget, they don't have control over hiring or firing or killing the product or moving on to something else, right? You have to influence without that authority, right? You don't typically have direct authority over most of the things needed to make your product successful. And so the way that you become a successful product manager is through clear communication, clear vision for what you're trying to build, and then ultimately compelling storytelling so that you can get your influence across to your team, to your stakeholders, to your executives, and to your customers, right? Again, remember, your job is to help your team navigate through that uncertainty. And nothing does that better than having a clear sense of where you're headed, that vision, and being able to clearly communicate that through compelling stories, evidence, facts, etc. A few years ago, I ran a survey with some product leaders to find out what they thought about product managers and whether or not they were, in fact, the CEOs of the product. And overwhelmingly, they said no, right? Again, we don't have control to do the things that we would like to do with the product. So as we collect that evidence, as we model that humility, we can help our teams decide the best next steps forward and to adjust course so that as we evolve the products that we're building, we're always serving the needs of the customer.